Welcome back everybody to episode 4. Today we're going to go over checkboxes, radio buttons, and dropdowns. Let's go ahead and start with checkboxes. Checkboxes are a component that a user can toggle on or off, which makes it great for things like edit locks, marking whether or not an item is equipped or a condition is active. If you want to present the user with a condition that is either always true or false and can quickly change between the two, a checkbox might be your best bet. In a later episode, we'll cover how to style our checkboxes differently, but for now, I'll go ahead and add 2 checkboxes to a new panel at the top of our body. Eventually, these will act as a toggle for dark mode and an edit lock for our system. You'll see throughout the course of this video that we're quickly running into a wall with our components by avoiding the formula system, and as such, our checkboxes won't actually be able to do anything yet. That being said, after today, we'll be skipping the rest of the components for a minute to introduce that formula system and start making a few things on our sheet actually functional. Next up are radio buttons, which gives our users multiple options to choose from, but rather than being limited to just switching condition on or off, which a radio button could also do, radio buttons can present even more options, except only one choice from the group can be true at any given time, making it great for providing players with multiple options where their choices are mutually exclusive, like choosing if a roll has advantage, disadvantage, or is normal, telling the doctor how much something hurts on a pain scale, or describing an item's rarity, where it can be anywhere from common to legendary, but not multiple. When creating a radio button, we are only creating one option at a time, meaning fatigue level 1 is just one radio button. We can link our options, like fatigue 1 and 2, to the player's choice of fatigue level by entering fatigue into the component group field, but be careful to make sure that it matches exactly. This way, only one level of fatigue can be active at any given time, and it doesn't affect our roll advantage group. Being able to create each option individually also means that we don't necessarily have to keep all of our options in the same place within our template. This allows us to nest our options for the same choice within different tabs, though I haven't found a real use for that yet. When first rendered, none of our choices should be selected, but as soon as one is, it becomes the only true value, and there's no way to unselect the entire group without recreating each component on the template, or likely some JavaScript intervention. That being said, in the case of our fatigue group, we will need a fatigue level 0 option to represent not having any fatigue, which will also go ahead and set as the default when the character sheet is first rendered just to prevent any errors. If multiple radio buttons in the same group are selected to be on as default, only one is enabled when the sheet is actually loaded, and I'm not sure how it's chosen, but it does appear to be the last in the list. And the last setting for the radio button that we need to worry about are their values, which is what the component will return as true when selected. We can choose to leave these values as blank if our radio buttons have no automated effects. However, I'll still include a number value for our fatigue levels just in case. The value can just as easily be text, but in this case, it's best just to keep things simple. If you've been paying attention to our prototype, you may have noticed that our radio buttons have 2 options selected within the fatigue group, and I want to address that this isn't the case. I plan to change the display of the radio buttons to show all options lower than the one selected are also colored. That way, it's clear that you had to pass through level 1 to get to level 2. But I'll likely choose a lighter shade to make it clear that 2 is the one that is currently selected. Let's go ahead and wrap things up with dropdowns. On the surface, dropdowns are exactly like radio buttons, in the sense that users are provided with a series of options, but only one can be chosen at a time. I personally find dropdowns are a lot better if the users have a lot of options to choose from, or the choices are highly text-based, where radio buttons shine as progression scales or number values. Though that's just personal choice. Dropdowns do, however, come with a great set of automation tools for adding new choices. But again, that's a later episode's problem. When creating dropdowns, we can choose how our options are defined with the radio button selector. However, dynamic tables and more formula have been covered yet, so we'll go ahead and leave those for later. For now, let's focus on the custom option. We can click on the plus sign to add more options to our dropdown, each of which will need a key and a label. The best way to think about the differences between these two is the key is how the computer will interpret the selection, where the label is a visual display that the players will see. There's currently no way for us to access the selected options label. However, there are some workarounds that we will be covering throughout the series, but accessing the selected options key is extremely easy and is something to keep in mind. However, keys and labels can have the same value, and in fact, if you leave the label blank, the key will be shown. The use case for having differing keys and labels could be setting the key to be a number value that's easily interpreted by our code, where the label is something that's easy for your players to read. For example, if we have a proficiency dropdown, we could have the modifier numbers as a key, which is easier for the computer code to work with, and text that's easy for our players to understand, like skill or expert, which gives them an idea of the option without having to bog them down with extra numbers. We'll cover dropdowns in more detail in a later episode, but for now, let's go ahead and add 2 to our sheet. We'll be replacing the concept field with dropdowns that contain options like barbarian and fighter that provide an archetype and inspiration for what the character is actually supposed to be. Then we'll add the affiliation field, which shows what faction our character is currently aligned with, and set the default affiliation to be the Adventurers Bureau, since most characters will likely be aligned with this faction. We'll go ahead and add another option just for fun called the Free Horizon, which is a band of adventurers who believe the Bureau is too regulated and against the concept of adventuring itself. Yet, the members are actually just a band of bandits and mercenaries who want to use the adventuring title to cover their activities. That's going to be it for today. So in the next episode, we're going to go over basic formula and start making parts of our sheet actually functional, especially since formula are going to be critical to our components going forward. So as always, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.